Jaywalking is illegal or reckless pedestrian crossing of a roadway. Examples include a pedestrian crossing between intersections without yielding to drivers and starting to cross a crosswalk at a signalized intersection without waiting for a permissive indication to be displayed. In the United States, state statutes generally reflect the Uniform Vehicle Code in requiring drivers to yield the right-of-way to pedestrians at crosswalks. At other locations, crossing pedestrians are either required to yield to drivers or, under some conditions, are prohibited from crossing. The term's dissemination in the 1920s and 1930s was due in part to the redefinition of some streets as places where pedestrians do not belong. The United Kingdom does not formally describe priority regulations for drivers and pedestrians at road junctions or other locations, except with respect to marked zebra crossings where motorists are required to give way to pedestrians under defined conditions. Elsewhere, the Highway Code relies on the pedestrian making their own judgment on whether it is safe to cross based on the Green Cross Code. If the pedestrian's judgment was correct, then no evasive reaction should be required by any drivers, but drivers are expected to avoid hazards and are examined on their ability to do so during the hazard perception test. Origin of the term. According to recent research, the earliest use of the word jaywalker in print was in the Chicago Tribune in 1909. The term's dissemination was due in part to a deliberate effort by promoters of automobiles, such as local auto clubs and dealers, to redefine streets as places where pedestrians do not belong. The word jaywalk is a compound word derived from the word jay, an inexperienced person, and walk. No historical evidence supports an alternative folk etymology by which the word is traced to the letter J. In towns in the American Midwest in the early 20th century, jay was a synonym for rube, a pejorative term for a rural resident, assumed by many urbanites to be stupid, slightly unintelligent, or perhaps simply norvay. Such a person did not know to keep out of the way of other pedestrians and speeding automobiles. It may also have been coined from the existing American word jayhawker, being a term for American guerrilla fighters in Kansas in the 19th century. Originally, the legal rule was that all persons have an equal right in the highway, and that in exercising the right each shall take due care not to injure other users of the way. In time, however, streets became the province of motorized traffic, both practically and legally. Automobile interests in the USA took up the cause of labeling and scorning jaywalkers in the 1910s and early 1920s. A counter-campaign to name jay drivers failed. Causes. People jaywalk for various reasons, including technical, religious and more mundane ones. For example, the common practice of car-centric traffic signal synchronization produces green waves for motorists but not necessarily for pedestrians, who may encounter little or no conflicting traffic at cross streets where signals instruct them to wait. Where signalized crosswalks require a pedestrian to trigger their operation, they are at times unusable for some Jewish people who observe Shabbat. Also, pedestrians are generally unwilling to observe lengthy wait times at signals. They are also more likely to make informal crossings at wide roads, or at locations where formal crosswalks are simply too distant to be practical for them to use. Also, pedestrians may dislike using intersections for other reasons, such as being uncomfortable dealing with traffic from a multitude of directions, or wanting to avoid the extra air emissions generated by vehicles stopping and starting. Pedestrians in London were found to be more likely to follow the traffic engineer preferred way through intersections with a design that is attentive to the needs of pedestrians. Cultural norms about jaywalking vary by locality but cannot simply be explained by corresponding variances in law. Cities like Copenhagen and New York have similar restrictions on jaywalking at signalized crosswalks, but the practice is far more common in New York. Safety. Jaywalking is generally perceived as an urban traffic safety problem. Many American newspapers publish stories that are critical of pedestrian road users' safety practices, while police departments often instigate education and enforcement campaigns to curb jaywalking. While nearly 3/5 of American pedestrian deaths occur outside of crosswalks, fewer than 1/5 occur in close proximity to a crosswalk. When practiced with caution, jaywalking or crossing away from intersections where legal, can be safer for pedestrians than exercising their right-of-way at crosswalks that are not equipped with pedestrian signals. Additionally, unsignalized marked crosswalks where drivers are more likely to yield to pedestrians are not necessarily safer than their unmarked counterparts, where pedestrians behave more cautiously, not expecting motorists to yield. Legal issues by jurisdiction. When used in the technical sense, jaywalking specifically refers to violation of pedestrian traffic regulations and laws and is therefore illegal. In many countries, such regulations do not exist and jaywalking is an unknown concept. Europe, United Kingdom, the term jaywalking is rarely used, and there is no law preventing jaywalking. In England, Wales and Scotland it is legal to cross all roads except motorways, and roads with the no pedestrians sign displayed. The Highway Code contains additional rules for crossing a road safely, but these are recommendations and not legally enforceable, although as with other advisory parts of the Highway Code, compliance or otherwise can be used to establish liability in civil law proceedings such as insurance claims. When crossing a road, pedestrians are advised to wait until it is safe to cross. If a pedestrian is crossing the road across a side street where a car is about to turn, vehicles should give way to the pedestrian. In UK schools, children are taught to cross roads safely through the Green Cross Code. British children are taught to stop, look, listen and think before crossing a road, as demonstrated in the Arrive Alive campaign. Zebra crossings can be seen in many roads in towns and cities. These are points where pedestrians can cross with the right-of-way. Vehicular traffic should stop at zebra crossings, both for pedestrians on the crossing and for any waiting to cross. The Highway Code advises pedestrians to walk within the marked path of pedestrian crossings, and not to cross the carriageway over the zigzag lines painted either side of the crossing itself. In Northern Ireland, jaywalking can be charged at police discretion and usually only in the case of an accident when clearly witnessed. Otherwise, Northern Ireland is essentially the same as elsewhere in the UK. Belgium. In Belgium, pedestrians are obligated to use marked crossings if located within 30 meters. France. In France, pedestrians used to be banned from crossing a street outside zebra crossings if there was one within 50 meters. The fine was €4. However, the rule was very seldom enforced. Since November 2010, drivers are required to give way for pedestrians crossing or showing the intention to cross in a situation where he is allowed to cross. Poland, jaywalking is an offense. One may cross only at recognized crossing points if there is one within 100 m. If caught by the police, the typical punishment is a fine. The same applies to crossing at a red light. Scandinavia, it is legal to cross all roads except motorways in Denmark, Sweden and Norway. Cars are required by law to give way to pedestrians at zebra crossings unless there is a traffic light. Pedestrians are encouraged to cross the road at zebra crossings if there is one nearby and are also discouraged from crossing at a red light. In Norway, a red man signal at the crossing indicates that pedestrians must not begin crossing if it would impede cars or entail danger, but a person may walk across if there are no cars nearby. Taking risks and running across in front of cars is not legal. Not everyone is aware that cyclists are required to stop at a red signal, and the Norwegian National Cyclists Organization has proposed disallowing all people from crossing at red to reduce the confusion. Serbia. In Serbia, it is illegal to cross roads other than at pedestrian crossings if there is a zebra crossing within 100 m. Kosovo, it is illegal to cross the road where there are no proper pedestrian signals or signs, resulting in fines of up to €20. North America, United States, state road rules in the United States typically require a driver to yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian crossing a road when the pedestrian crosses at a marked crosswalk or an unmarked crosswalk. Unmarked crosswalks generally exist as the logical extensions of sidewalks at intersections with approximately right angles. Following the Uniform Vehicle Code, state codes often do not prohibit a pedestrian to cross a roadway between intersections if at least one of the two adjacent intersections is not controlled by a signal, but stipulate that a pedestrian not at a crosswalk must yield the right-of-way to approaching drivers. State codes often permit pedestrians to use roads which are not controlled access facilities and without sidewalks, but they must keep to the leftmost side of the road unless this renders them invisible to approaching traffic. State codes may include provisions that allow local authorities to prohibit pedestrian crossing at locations outside crosswalks, but since municipal pedestrian ordinances are often not well known to drivers or pedestrians, and can vary from place to place in a metropolitan area that contains many municipalities, obtaining compliance with local prohibitions of pedestrian crossings much more restrictive than statewide pedestrian regulations can be difficult. Signs, fences, and barriers of various types have been used to prohibit and prevent pedestrian crossing at some locations. Where detour to a legal crossing would be highly inconvenient, even fences are sometimes not effective. Street design, traffic design, and locations of major building entrances that make crosswalks the most logical and practical locations to cross streets are usually more effective than police enforcement in reducing the incidence of illegal or reckless pedestrian crossings. At a signalized crossing, a pedestrian is subject to the applicable pedestrian traffic signal or, if no pedestrian signal is displayed, the signal indications for the parallel vehicular movement. A pedestrian signal permits a pedestrian to begin crossing a street during the walk display. The pedestrian is usually considered to be jaywalking only if he entered the crosswalk at some other time. The meanings of pedestrian signal indications are summarized in Section 4E02 of the National Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Jaywalking is considered an infraction, but in some jurisdictions, it is a misdemeanor or requires a court appearance. The penalty is usually a fine. In some cities, although prohibited, jaywalking behavior has been so commonplace that police generally cite or detain jaywalkers only if their behavior is considered excessively dangerous or disruptive, such as running out in front of a moving vehicle, or crossing after the light is about to change to allow cross-traffic to proceed. Penalties for jaywalking vary by state, and, within a state, may vary by county or municipality. In Tempe, Arizona, as of June 2006, jaywalking carried fines up to $118. A sampling of other U.S. cities found fines ranging from $1 a Euro $1,000. Jaywalking at a signalized intersection may carry higher fines in some jurisdictions due to disobeying the signalized controls. Many jurisdictions have a separate law defining the difference between jaywalking, or disobedience of traffic signal controls. Some jurisdictions may fine you up to the same amount as a vehicle running a red light, but no driving points are issued, as the pedestrian was not driving at the time. Mexico, although not illegal, jaywalking is a serious issue around the country, particularly in Mexico City. In the Paseo de la Reforma, one of the City Euro's longest and most important avenue, jaywalking became such an issue that Andrés Manuel López Obrador, then the City Euro's mayor, commissioned the installation of concrete prisms along the Avenue Euro's central curb, to discourage pedestrians from jaywalking. Asia. In many Asian countries, the low level of traffic control means that jaywalking is often more of a necessity to a pedestrian and is rarely punished outside of major commercial hubs such as Singapore. In many countries such as India or Vietnam it is quite common, given the level of traffic, that pedestrians will walk out into oncoming traffic and effectively carve out a route to the other side of the road. Iran. In Iran jaywalking is illegal. One may cross only at recognized crossing points if there is one within 150 m. Regarding to traffic laws, jaywalking and crossing when a pedestrian light is red or to start walking when it is flashing is prohibited from 1970s. If in an intersection there is no pedestrian light, traffic lights would be considered, so it would be illegal when it is red or orange. As of November 2009, jaywalking carries fines from $300,000 up to $2 million reals, $30 to $200. Singapore. In Singapore jaywalking is an offence. A fine of 20 Singapore dollars is payable for the first offence. Repeat offenders can be charged $1,000 and a jail term of 3 months, though it's rarely imposed. Australia. In Australia, it is illegal to start crossing the road at an intersection when a pedestrian light is red or flashing red. If no such pedestrian light exists, the traffic lights are used, making it illegal to proceed on red or orange. Furthermore, it is illegal to cross any road within 20 m of an intersection with pedestrian lights or within 20 m of any pedestrian crossing. However, laws against jaywalking are rarely enforced, with the exception of the occasional police blitz on jaywalking for a week or so at a time, when the laws are enforced more stringently. Some roads, such as roads with a record of pedestrian accidents, feature fences in their centres to discourage pedestrians, but there is no law against traversing them. New Zealand. In New Zealand, the fine is up to $35 New Zealand dollars for child pedestrians or $45 New Zealand dollars for adult pedestrians who cross a road without using a marked crossing if there is one within 50 m, or those who cross at a red light. See also, effects of the automobile on societies, crosswalk, misdemeanor, reclaim the streets, shared space, references. Further reading, Jaywalking, How the Car Industry Outlawed Crossing the Road, BBC News, February 11, 2014. External links, What Every Brit Should Know About Jaywalking. BBC News, The Invention of Jaywalking.